bring some of you on stage where we allow you to unmute and ask questions of our esteemed and excellent panelists. So if you are one of those persons tonight and you have a burning question, please do go ahead and use that feature. We will give you the chance to unmute and you can come live and ask your questions of our panelists. That's it for housekeeping matters. Let me just ask everybody, how are you doing? How the new year catching us so far? How are you feeling? I hope excellently. And if not, I hope by the time the class ends, we're in a better space and we would have benefited from amazing conversations, okay? Now, we're going to launch our poll, but before that, let me welcome on Stefan Campbell, who is no stranger to the live class space. He was on twice in season 1. Welcome back to season 2, Stefan. How you do?
I'm great, Kamala. It's good to be here again.
Yes, good to see you. Good to have you back on. And I know you're coming with some powerful things to share with us this evening. So I hope the audience is ready, right?
I hope they're ready. I really hope they're ready.
A quick question for you. Are you setting any New Year's resolutions or intentions this year?
Give me till February. Yeah, let me test out this space a little bit.
Listen, the first couple of days have been a little weird. So I feel like several persons are similarly saying, you know, give me a few. I'll soon come back.
2020 part 2, 2020 part 2, the sequel. Yeah, give me some time.
We pray not. Welcome, Donna. Welcome, Joanna. Welcome to all of you. Thanks for coming back into the space. Hi, Letna. Good to have you back. Now, before we delve into the juicy matters of love and money, Stefan, let us launch our poll questions. We're going to ask you, please, to complete these questions. Give us a feedback of how you're doing, what you're expecting from class, importantly, so that we can do our best to guide the conversation and to deliver on our promise of an excellent life class, okay? So go ahead, the poll is open, and in a couple of minutes, I'll come back on and I will be reading your responses. And of course, towards the end of class, we'll have another one to check and see if we delivered on our promise of an excellent life class, okay? So as usual, go ahead, type it in, and we will read all of your responses very shortly. So Stefan, I think we've lost your video. Okay, here you come. Yes. All right. So Stefan, when are you're not seeing the poll, Shafara? Mr. Tech Team, could you please relaunch for us? I don't know if Shafara is the only person who's having that issue. Did you see it, Stefan? It came up.
Yes, I did. Okay. Yes.
All right. So Stefan, we're talking about love, and we're talking about money. And one of those topics is considered to be romantic and or sexy, and the other is not. How do you view this topic? How do you view this relationship between love and money?
You know, I mean, so it's funny that we're on the JN platform now, but when I think about a healthy relationship, I think about a happy home, a house, right? But even when it's time to get a mortgage, you need some pre-qualification, right? And you need that pre-qual from the bank that says you can afford this house, this happy home. So when it comes to love and relationships, I think even before we get to family life and how we want to live happily ever after, a frank discussion needs to take place about money, right? A very frank discussion needs to take place about money, because that has the potential to make or break literally a happy home. So it's, I honestly don't see it as either or. I think it is part of the love or relationship dynamic. I don't think that one is more important than the other. It's part of the overall ecosystem called love or a healthy relationship.
Stefan, I'm wondering if my mind is racing ahead, right, to another controversial topic. I've heard so many people talk about the fact that, look here, marriage, for example, is only for rich people, for people who can, who have the means to, right? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I don't think marriage is for rich people. Weddings are for rich people. and I say that differently because weddings are marketed in this way that you feel like you need to put yourself in debt or have this extravagant or flamboyant thing in order for it to be proof that you have a healthy or meaningful relationship. And we can get into the fact that it is marketed more to women than to men, you know.
That's the truth.
It's the woman's big day, and if the man isn't willing to put out, and these are things I've heard, if the man isn't willing to put out and to show out for a big rock on the hand or for a sprawling wedding, then he doesn't love you enough, sis. He doesn't love you. If he just wants to have an intimate backyard wedding, him not love you. And it's probably a sign of things to come in the actual marriage. But no, I think marriage is something that should be for all. I don't think the wedding should be an indicator of how much you love the person. And as a matter of fact, if you, and I mean, when we get to the lawyer, we can understand that we can understand common law and all of these things. But when it gets, I think marriage is for anybody. And if two people are willing to commit and make that decision, they are free to do it, regardless of if they are wealthy or not wealthy.
Agreed. And Stefan, before we even jump to the next question, let me take our poll questions to get a sense. I'm hearing a couple of panelists say that your video is upside down, Stefan.
It's upside down.
I'm seeing you quite fine.
Yes, let me see.
Can I get some feedback from other members of our team? Let us know if you're seeing Stefan in the right. Okay, see that it's fine here. So I'm not sure if maybe it's okay. So that's a couple of people are saying it's fine. All right.
Okay,
I'd like to read a couple of our poll responses before we get into the issue of does it really take cash to care, right? And some other well-held ideas about marriage. So our first question, Stefan, how would you describe your current mood? 54% of our participants are okay, 35% happy, and a couple of people are feeling ecstatic, which is good. Do you think one partner should shoulder more financial responsibility than the other? And I like this audience, I always say it. 67% of them said no, right? 21% of them said sort of. And I'd love to hear in the comment section what those of you who chose that option mean by sort of. The third one said, do you or did you have discussions about money habits before committing to a romantic relationship? 45% of persons said no, and 55% would have either said yes or sometimes. Okay, that's pretty good. Are you setting joint financial resolutions with your partner this year? So we have, how much is that? 64% of persons who are in a relationship answering. I think the majority of them said no. 14% said sort of, and 23% of them said yes. And finally, what are you expecting from this class? And 67% of you said practical advice on how to have money conversations in relationships. And we're going to deliver on top of delivering this evening, right? Stefan, there's a popular idea that when poverty comes through the window, love goes out the door, or that it takes cash to care. I definitely believe on my end that it's difficult to maintain a happy home when the money storing are right. And that not only speaks to the fact that the couple together doesn't have enough, but sometimes it speaks to the fact that the money is not being managed well, okay? Do you think it is possible for there to be lack or poverty and for people to still have happy, loving, healthy relationships?
Yes. If I were to even reflect on my own upbringing, my parents weren't necessarily the wealthiest, but to this day they are the gold standard for a happy marriage, right? And it's only when I became an adult I heard some of the stories of what they had to go through even before they got married. And growing up as a child, I never felt poor, I never felt lacking, and it was a happy home. But it would be remiss of me to say that, people say money can't buy happiness, but it can surely buy things that make you happy.
Yes.
And when we think about the fact that some people's love language is actually gifts or receiving gifts, right? We live in an age where money has to actually buy some of those things, right? And so I think, again, we need to understand the type of person we are getting into a relationship with. Save yourself some stress by having these discussions, even if you're not giving anybody your paycheck up front.
Yes.
But have an idea, and you can have an idea, which is why dating is so important. You can have an idea of how the person thinks about money, right? How they feel about money from very early on. And that's where it starts. Yes, it's going to be harder for somebody who has less resources, but comparison is the thief of joy sometimes. So You might believe that you are poor only because you are comparing yourself to another couple or another group of people whose standard is far different from yours, but you never really understand what's going on behind closed doors. There are some very wealthy couples who are very unhappy.
Absolutely.
The gram will say otherwise, and and you'll see couple goals, but you need to understand that the wealth or poverty does not have to be the thing that defines your relationship or how happy you are with each other.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned that issue of the marriage versus the wedding, Stefan. And when we bring on Basillia and Brian, I went fast in business to find out how they manage the money spending for their wedding, right? And would have done it differently if they had a chance. So we're going to come to that. But Stefan, in many instances though, let's be honest about it. We don't spend a lot of time talking before getting into a deep love space about money. It's almost like we just close our eyes and wish for it to work out well. Yeah. And then oftentimes that ends up now in incompatibility in the money space, right? What are some of the important questions you think that we should be asking, or some discussions then that we should be putting out there when guy meets girl and things feel all nice and sexy and all the hormones pumping?
Yeah, I think the first thing, well, as a communicator, I think even before we get to discussing it, it's about understanding what it means to you. You can't express it if you yourself don't even understand what it means to you. And when it comes to money, a lot of us don't understand what it means to us, or what it does. And the interesting thing is, we go through primary school. I don't know if things change now, but going through primary school, the only time you learned about money was if Jack had 50 cents and bought two apples. But you never knew about financial management. So even the language of it, you don't know, much less to even broach a topic about with somebody else about talking about it. Plus financial insecurity, because you feel like you need to appear as if you know. And if you speak about it to somebody else, they are going to realize there's a chink in your armor, and the house of cards falls down. So even before we get to talking about it, you need to understand, I'm saying this to everybody, you need to understand what are your securities and insecurities when it comes to money, and learn that in and out. Be able to say comfortably, this is where I am, but this is where I want to be. Say that, play that conversation out in your mind. And then and only then can you have that conversation with someone else, right? I can tell you, listen, I've made some significant financial strides, but I'm still not where I want to be yet. And I will have that conversation with anyone. What that does is it makes the other person or the other partner more comfortable to talk about their experiences. So I'm not so don't ever start by asking the person, how your finances stay, or what you think about money, or what your savings. That doesn't that is not going to help the conversation. So it starts with you.
How about asking the man? Because I'm going to put you in the hot seat on we're on, right? How about asking the man? So like, how much money you can give me per month to do my errand? So we can't ask that. That's not appropriate.
Anybody could ask that, but it's as hypothetical as the math question. It's as hypothetical because, again, in the dating stage, whatever mask, whatever facade I need to put on in order to get what I want, then I will say it. No, the man just might have that money and is willing to spend, but it comes at the cost of something else. And I mean, we haven't gotten to the cost yet, but everything comes at a cost. So if the man is willing to spend, the question you need to ask yourself as a woman is, what are you going to be giving up for that thing? Nobody gives or pays, and we live in a capitalist society. Nobody gives or pays for something without expecting something else in return. But I think what becomes problematic is that because the man chooses to, one, or is unable to give you the money, then you consider him valueless. And what you are creating is the context that, as a man, the only thing that matters is what I can provide. And I do not need to develop any other area or element of my life, because it means that if I can get you, and all I need to do is pay for your hair and pay for clothes every 2 weeks, then I don't need to do anything else. I don't need to pay attention to any other area of my life to develop, much less to develop any other area of the relationship.
Wow. Wow. So you just fed that back to us, right? And it doesn't taste good. So you're saying that because I went there in terms of, what can you give to me, right? To
Mm,
make me to maintain my life, especially if I'm what we call it high maintenance. What
mm,
can you contribute to me? We often think of it in monetary terms. And I'd love to hear from our viewing audience family if you agree that too often, right? Especially in heterosexual unions, women look to men. They're supposed to bring the cheddar. They're supposed to, fork it out. And and especially on the first couple of dates, there is the expectation of image. So he's taking me to where for our first
mm,
date? To
mm.
KFC? No, I want to go to, the other places, right? Or he's picking you up in a what? What kind of what other people sound so? And we have these expectations of the expensive giftings and the trips
Yeah,
overseas and the Bridget Sandals for Christmas
yeah,
and all of these things, right? You're saying to us that if it is that we put undue pressure and if it is that we focus too much on that, then we're also sending a message, Stefan, that the value, maybe the primary or only value that the man brings is for what he can.
absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. It's undue pressure on the one hand, but on the other hand, it's a cop out, because especially in the traditional society that we live in, as a man, if you know that all you need to do is make money and spend money and give money, then I don't want to have any conversation about anything else. Don't ask me about nothing. Don't ask me about emotional support or anything. And so, since I've been trained only to provide, that's all I'm going to do. And if you have a problem with that, you can find an next person who is more emotional and less paid. And chances are you're not going to, we're not going to get into the discussion about who is side and all of these things. But again, everything comes at a cost. And when we make that the primary emphasis, the primary focus, you need to consider that something else is being lost.
Mm-hmm. Stefan, there is an important conversation that's being had on social media in many different ways. And it's almost mocking those of us, right? Who like to talk about, listen, he should be earning six figures, seven figures. He should already have a home, the long list of items, right? And now people are flipping it back and saying, what about you? What do you bring to the table? Right? so so importantly, there's now this shift from desiring the ideal
Mm,
partner and can list out the things them one, two, three, and the emphasis is now becoming on being placed on becoming the ideal partner, and also in the money area, being
mm.
somebody who has good financial habits and have made some inroads in that area of their lives. What do you think about this flipping? You think it's fair? You think it makes sense?
I think it's always fair if both parties are bringing equal amounts to the table. I always think it's fair. I also think it's good that people are focusing on creating a better version of themselves, and then they can decide what what type of interdependent relationship they enter into, right? Because that's what it is. It's about interdependence. But I, I can't fault anybody for saying that, you want a man with six figures and a house already, and nothing is wrong with that. Nothing is wrong with that. In and of yourself, that's if you're staying by yourself. And kudos to you if you find somebody who has those things, fine. But again, you need to understand whether these are the most important elements of the relationship, right? Because be careful what you wish for, because you might find the man and you don't understand the history of that person. And I
Mhm.
think in one of the podcast episodes, we discussed it. For the man who was broke and was rejected and neglected for most of his early years, when he finally makes it, he is not going to give the woman who chances are might deserve it the time and the attention, because all of his life, the message that has been given to him is that the six figures and the house and the car is the most important part of the relationship, right? And so when we, and so yes, there's a flipping of the script, because now men are saying, hold on, I work so hard for this. Listen, woman, you need to bring something to the table as well, right? You don't want any brokey. I don't want any brokey either. Right. And I applaud any man who has gotten to that point, because yes, you want to provide, but more than being able to provide, you want to be treated as a human being, not as a checkbook, but as a human being. And that can only come when we balance the expectations, instead of this very strange resume that oftentimes I see on social media.
Absolutely. And Stefan, when I'm bringing up a couple of the comments in the chat, just to just put out there that sugar mamas are now becoming a big thing, right?
Oh Lord.
There are some men who flip the script all the way, and
Oh
they're like,
yeah.
I don't mind having a woman spoil me, wine me, dine me, fly me all over Paris and the whole world, because I deserve it too. And there are many women who love to share their wealth in that way, right? So I'm getting the sense that the overarching theme here is that it needs to be a conversation that is had,
Yeah, yeah,
and a
yeah,
decision about what
yeah.
works for the union, what each person
Yes,
is looking for. Because some
yes.
people don't want the money bags, Stefan. Let's be honest. Some people
Hmm.
want a transactional situation, but I feel like it's important to be honest, as you said. And I
Yeah,
love that we went from a communications perspective to the fact of being honest with self and having awareness
first,
about
first
how
and foremost.
money works for
Hmm.
you.
Hmm.
Mhm.
uh, if I must say, the sugar. So I lived in Montego Bay for quite some time, and it was very common to see this type of interaction, right? Especially for people who come from overseas and come to Jamaica. We know about
Say
that
no more.
nuance
Say
and
no
that
more, Sam.
and that dynamic, right? But yes, you find a spouse who's willing to pay and to provide. But unless the conversation, yes, some people are willing to provide for somebody, for another person. They feel good being able to provide, being able to be the sole provider. And I mean, you can't take that joy away from that person either, but the discussion must be had.
Absolutely. I'm seeing Rose Miller, our panelist extraordinaire from last week, who talked about the things on this platform. Rose says she agrees with Stefan about the fact that literacy, and understanding of money is not where it should be. But she says we are working to fix that problem. This is where the JN Foundation's Be Wise Empowerment Program steps in to help to
Mm,
raise awareness about good money management, right?
absolutely.
Jennifer says we call those people cougars. Just put cougar in the chat. Jennifer, behave yourself. Patricia says,
Mm.
Stefan, tell me, if a man approaches the woman and while communicating and searching the man out, he responds that he is and know that he should be the main provider. However, doing so, the woman starts to earn more. I knew this would come up. The woman starts to earn more and then he pulls back. What would you say to both parties?
Uh, so again, that comes from a certain level of insecurity. That comes from a certain thinking that in the patriarchal society, that as the man, if you're not the sole provider, at least you need to be earning more than the woman, right? It would be interesting to find out how the conversations behind closed doors go, because if the man feels comfortable in the relationship earning less, meaning she is not saying, listen, you don't contribute enough to the house, or remember who pay for this, remember, if that conversation is happening in the household, then that is going to lead to further insecurities, right? That's a very toxic environment. But if it is that the man feels comfortable earning less, right, because the woman doesn't make him feel uncomfortable, then I don't see any problem arising. Again, it's really about parity, it's about interdependence, and that frank discussion needs to happen to say, all right, I used to earn this, now I earn this. Let's see how we can reshift certain things, readjust expectations when it comes to the overall household. But it can be that he's over on the other side. Because at the end of it, it boils down to, again, in a capitalist society where, we are taught that money is more important than the person. The fear is that, in the man's mind, is that now that she's earning more, she's probably going to want to, using your term, level up, right? So it's time to shift categories now. So I need to find, now that I'm earning more, I need to move up as well in the food chain as well. So I need to leave this man who is earning less than me behind, That's and these are fears that go through men's minds, which is why it's oftentimes a lot of men like to choose a woman who is not earning as much or just starting out their career because they feel like it's easier to keep her tied down. A sad reality, but it's a reality nonetheless.
You know, I have a sister in Stefan who very qualified, doing well for herself. And when she would be dating and you know the question comes up, what do you do for a living? And she would state her profession. She said the responses just got weird. And so
Really?
she literally resorted to an experiment where she
Yeah,
would tell people that I'm a cashier, right?
yeah,
And
yeah,
she said she saw a complete shift
yeah,
in how
yeah.
willing they were to continue to reach out and to engage. Stefan, what's that
It's
really about?
it's really weird. It's really weird. But again, it's we 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 raise our boys in insecurity. That's the reality. We raise our young boys to be insecure, one, and to not talk about it, two. And that creates a very uncomfortable situation in a man's mind and when it comes to relationships as well. Um, so again, because the locus of control in a man's mind is that in order to be seen as valuable, that needs to come from outside, not me. So the woman needs to understand that I am valuable to her. And the moment she no longer understands that value, perhaps my value in and of myself is going to be reduced. And so yes, there are a lot of insecure men out there, and it is directly linked to financial insecurity because we teach men that they are supposed to be the breadwinners and the providers. And if you can't do that, then why are you even here? And the narrative is changing, albeit slowly, but it still exists to a large extent, where the man feels like to be defined as a man, he has to be the sole provider, the main provider, the one who earns more, just in case.
Mhm. And we have Monique right on time with a comment. Monique says, initially, I have always made more money than my husband, but he always had more money than me. As his hold on there, Monique. as as his thing was not what you make, but what you put down. He
Mm,
always had to be coming to my rescue. Thank you for this piece. Letna also jumped in. Letna says, "What is a young lady? What a young lady has her? What if a young lady has her own apartment or house, working more than a boyfriend, and they are talking serious relationship? Should she draft a prenuptial agreement?" So, Stefan, I'm going to ask you to respond to Monique's comment, especially about how we show up differently with money habits and money personalities, right?
yes,
Give me your
yes,
feedback on
yes.
that, and I'm going to ask you to just drop one nugget on Letna's question, and then we will segue right on time into the excellent attorney that we have on board. Thank God she's here to answer this very relevant question of prenuptial agreements. Go for it.
What was the first one again? Remind me of the first one.
So Monique was talking about the fact that she makes more money, or
Yes,
initially she made
yes,
more money, but her husband always have more money than she,
yes,
because her
right.
husband is focused on not only what you make, but what you stash away, as Rose
Ah,
mentioned last week for a rainy day.
yes. So again, when it comes to financial literacy or understanding that money should work for you, and everyone has a different money personality. I wish I had the link to share, but probably I'll share it when I'm.
Actually, I shared it with the team, so we're looking forward to seeing it in the chat. We want to share a money personality quiz with all of you.
Yes,
Take it with your partner, by yourself, whatever, to get a sense of how you deal with money. Go for it.
right. Because everyone has a different money personality. Some people are the spenders. You know, some people are the savers. Some people are the investors. Right. And everyone's money personality is going to determine their relationship with money, not the relationship with the other person, their relationship with money. So you need to understand, just like any other, the MBTI test and the personality, you need to understand what's the person's personality. Right. So yes, I make less, but what I do with my money in terms of investments and savings, I just might end up with more earnings, more money, because cash flow and profit and loss is two different things. And
Yes.
business will tell you that. So you just might be making more, but you're spending more. So your cash flow is high, but your profit is low. And that's a perfect scenario. And if you don't understand, and I guess even as a man, because of because of that imperative, or you feel like the onus is on you to always have more, perhaps that's why he feels like, even though I'm making less, I need to save more of this, because you never know what might happen that I might be called upon to provide, even though, as you said, as she said, he always helps her to provide and be able to fill that gap. Right. The prenup part, listen, whatever makes you feel comfortable, do it. Once you're talking to the other person and they are comfortable, then I don't see any problem with it. But I know the lawyer is going to build on that some more.
Yes, I love that you're true to what you do. You're a communicator by training and by trade, Stefan. And the crux of the matter, whether it's money or children or whatever it is, it's important to communicate and not try
Absolutely.
to be copy and pasting anybody's relationship into yours. Do what is
Correct
healthy,
is right.
what is authentic to you.
Mm-hmm.
And importantly, I feel like a big part of what you have shared with us thus far, Stefan, is how important it is for us to value people,
Mm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes we do get caught up in the narrative of, oh, my worth is determined completely by what I have in the bank or not, right? And there's a thing called net worth, but it's also important to realize that we are worth more than what we own.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that's important to bear in mind as well.
Absolutely.
So Stefan, I saw one more comment that I want you to respond to. Shafara says conversations regarding money in a relationship extremely important. You have persons, and I love that she said persons, she never said men or women, right? You have
Good.
persons with some enormous loans, and
Yes.
they'll say nothing until you're all settled down and married. That's
Mm.
eviction.
Mm. Now we're jumping into financial infidelity. So cheating
Yes.
doesn't necessarily happen when it comes to somebody stepping out, but a lot of times people are hiding their debts and they are hiding bank accounts and their offshores and all of these things because they are afraid of, one, being judged, or two, being used. So although we have a joint account, I have my account that you'll never know about, because if anything goes south, I have this to for. We call it your vex money. You get vex money.
Money, yes.
So the account is that. But yes, the debt. And again, there is this serious discomfort when it comes to this word debt, right? A lot of people are afraid to talk about debt, and people don't even realize there is good debt versus bad debt, which is a whole other conversation. But understanding that, yes, that debt does not have to be death. Debt does not have to be death, and there is a way to come out of it. There is a way to use it to benefit you in the future. But again, you need to understand what it is in order to talk about it, to get out of that insecurity in your own self and then your relationship.
And we talked about, Rose Miller took us excellently last week through talking about good debt and bad debt. For those of you who missed it, please go find it on JN Group's YouTube page or their Facebook page. A very, very excellent conversation. A couple of quick points, Stefan, before we segue into the prenup, the prenup story. I see Claudine with a gem. Claudine says you can marry into someone's family, you can marry into someone's debt. So it's very important to have open, right? Transparent conversations with persons. And Jennifer Clark Twiddle with a bomb of a question. Jennifer says, do we need to start requesting credit reports from our partners? That said, Stefan, I am going to segue over to the expert.
Absolutely.
McGregor, attorney at law par excellence. Please join us on stage, Sherry-Ann. Thank you for taking the time to sit with us today. I hope you've been enjoying the convo so far.
Oh, yes, I have. And it's such a familiar one, right?
Yes.
But when we're talking casually, that's always the case. When we're talking casually, talking about money is fine. But when it comes to having a formal conversation, that's when things get sticky.
Sherry-Ann, I want to make it so practical this evening. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to put a scenario to our audience, right? Let's say guy meets girl. Let's call guy Bobby and the girl named Debbie, right? So Bobby and Debbie meet. And they're having an excellent time. The energy is good, the chemistry is right, they gel, they have an awesome time together, right? And they're now at the place where they are about to get serious. Yeah? What are some of the preliminary conversation topics that you, with your eagle eye experience and vantage point, would say that they should have with each other early out?
Well, if they've established that they are either going to live together or get married, then they have to start at least thinking about, are we going to be acquiring joint assets? How much do you have to put on the table? How much do I have? And therefore, if you're asking me how much I have to put on the table, then you have to understand how much debt I'm carrying already, right? So will I qualify for a mortgage? Do I already own property? Do I have a job that will be able to service a debt that we're going to have to pay in order to purchase a substantial asset? And in any relationship, we have to be pulling together, right? So when we start talking about getting serious, we're going to probably share a space on a permanent basis. So who is going to take care of the expenses to maintain that space? Do we have one car or do we have two? Who's going to pay the car loan? And of course, when they're living together, you have to be thinking long term. Are we going to be having children? How many children will we have? How are we going to finance their education? I could go on and on and on, but we have to be talking be more focused then on how we are going to be able to live on more than love.
Listen, I love that. Please drop that in the chat, somebody. How are we going to be able to live on more than love? Because we are taught, Sherry-Ann, that love is all we need. And love will always be enough. Yeah?
Well, love is very important, obviously. And unfortunately, if the love goes, no matter how much money you have, then living together is going to be probably hell, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we have to achieve some balance. How do we ensure that we are living within our means and being able to sustain ourselves and any additions to our little unit, you know? So
let's go back to
frank.
Yes, we have to be frank. Let's go back to our scenario. So let's say that Debbie is earning a good amount of money. Debbie does well, she has assets, she's wealthy. Bobby is not quite there yet. And Debbie's family says to her, look here, do not marry Bobby without going down to Attorney McGregor's office and drafting a prenuptial agreement.
Do you know it really happens?
So I'm coming to you now. I'm coming to sit at your feet and to number one, ask you to teach us tonight, what is a prenup? What is a prenuptial agreement? And how often does it happen here in Jamaica? Because I feel like we kind of think it's
it's foreign.
Right, concept.
And it's only for the very wealthy. That's what people think. But from 2006, on All Fools' Day to be precise, the Property Rights of Spouses Act came into effect. And with that came a clear statement in law that prenuptial agreements are legit in Jamaica. They are recognized, and if done properly, we can talk about how they can spare us a whole lot of acrimony, stress, and paying me a lot of legal fees, okay? Because it can take a long time for these matters to get through the court if we end up in property dispute.
Yes.
So let's start with this. A prenup is a contract. So we are talking about your typical situation where we are being romantic, we are being casual, we are talking about life, but we have to be businesslike in terms of how our conversation then flows, because we are entering into legal relationships. People don't recognize readily that the marriage is a contract too.
Yes.
Yes. And another thing I have to slip in here is that we typically talk about prenuptial agreements because they are contracts made in contemplation of marriage. But because of the same Property Rights of Spouses Act and how Jamaica's laws have evolved over the years, we recognize common law unions, right? Can I tell you now what a common law union is?
Walk us through.
All right. So in Jamaica, we only legally recognize heterosexual relationships. So it's man and woman. You can't be married in Jamaica legally unless you're a man and a woman, right? And likewise, with a common law union, you can't become common law spouses unless you are a single man or woman living together with a single woman or man. So it's man and woman, woman and man.
Pick a pin right there. I love that you emphasized that. It may seem like a given, but I can imagine that several persons have staked claims when it is that they were perhaps living or in a union with somebody who was not unmarried. Yes?
Correct. And I like the fact that you say unmarried because people think they're single because they have walked away from a marriage, but you are still married, right? And so it's a single man or woman living together with a single woman or man for as if they were in law, husband and wife. So that's important. We're not just roommates, right? Living together as if you were husband and wife for at least 5 years. Okay? So because, well, unbroken too. Well, people might separate, but we have to be able to map out that 5-year period somehow, because it might be 7 years, but you broke up in between or something like that. But it's left to be seen how the court will determine that issue. But the point is this: because we can have prenuptial agreements in anticipation of marriage, we can have cohabitation agreements in anticipation of establishing a common law union. Okay? So now why is it important to ensure that that sticks in your head? You're living together, it becomes year 4 years and 10 months, or 4 years, 11 months and 29 days. And you need to be thinking to yourself, what's gonna happen here? Come year 5, it's just as well you were married without the ceremony and all of that, but the legal implications become quite similar. You don't have to dissolve a common law union by getting a decree absolute at the Supreme Court, but you have the same legal issues concerning spousal support, what would happen if one party dies, and of course, division of assets. So they follow as a natural consequence of either being common law spouses or married spouses.
So did anyone in the comments know all of this? Is this news to anybody? Especially that piece about how similar the legal implications are, right? After year 5, whether it's common law or married. Novia said it's news to her, yeah? So that's why I think this is the best life class series anywhere in the world, because we bring you what you need to know to live a full and abundant life. And thank you for that, Sherry-Ann. I saw a question earlier from Janice, who was asking, are prenups a good thing or good things? And I feel like so often, Sherry-Ann, it gets kind of tinged with this idea that it's only if there's a gold digger in the picture, right? That somebody has to defend against them coming to rip them off of all their assets. But you are normalizing, it's a contract, and it can say many things.
That's correct. And you asked earlier, how common are they in Jamaica? It's still less common for you to have prenuptial agreements before you get married, but it's becoming increasingly popular. And it's not only people who are super wealthy who end up signing prenups. I'll tell you the most common scenario I've been presented with. I was married before. I'm now divorced. I have children from that union, and I have assets that were acquired during that union or sometime previously. And I want to ensure that I preserve those assets for the children that I had before I met this man I'm about to marry. Is it fair? Is it reasonable? You know, these are just frank questions that people have to have with each other, because when it's lurking in the background, it's going to come to light at some point, you know. And the truth is that we have no guarantees of forever. We know that when we take the marriage vow, it says till death do us part, typically not till divorce do us part, but many marriages end in divorce.
That's a hard truth, yes.
Right? And especially when you've been through a marriage that ended badly. And so you have that text, sleep, mark, death kind of thing.
Yes.
And you're saying to yourself, it could happen again. So should I be therefore going into this new union with eyes wide open and recognizing that despite my best efforts, you could decide that this relationship is no longer working for you. And there's no way for me to force you to remain in a marriage or common law union with me. So we know that the end could come sooner than death, right? And if that's the case, there are consequences that flow from the relationship coming to an end. So the question is, do we just frankly sit down now and agree how things should flow if we happen to break up or end the marriage? Or do we wait till it happens and all the acrimony sets in, logic and common sense and reasonableness fly out the window and we end up in court? So there are many pros and cons, you know? The one thing I would say is this: don't have the conversation on the eve of the wedding.
Oh Lord, I thought that was a given.
No, it happens so often. I've had people rush into my office as if they had a light bulb and say to me, oh, I want a prenup. And it might not be literally tomorrow, but it's already in the making. The plans have been set, you know, and they come in and talk to me and I explain what's involved. I explain that it has to be a written document. It needs careful thought. You will need to have an attorney of your own. She will need to have an attorney of her own. And so everybody's gonna lawyer up. And I don't know what that attorney is gonna advise her to do or say. So there's likely to be back and forth to settle the terms of it. And people's backs go up. All kinds of alarm bells go off. And I have had situations where people have come to me to say they want to discuss a prenup and the wedding is off.
Wow.
It just goes because they can't tolerate the kind of
friction.
What should I say? The truths that have to be spoken when you're talking about financial matters.
Wow.
They can't talk, the relationship can't sustain it. So it's rough.
It's a very, very powerful force in a relationship. And I love that suggestion. Do not leave it until you've already booked the church hall or the Grand Hotel, whatever it is. You booked Trident Hall already, the Trident Castle, right? Don't wait until then to be thinking through what if. we don't make it. Plan it, have the discussions early. I have a question, Sherry-Ann. If it is that, going back to our couple, Debbie and Bobby, let's say that Debbie and Bobby ended up in a common law relationship, right? And because of the love and the synergy, etc., they decided to buy a car together and they started a business together because, upward mobility and all these things. And let's say that at 5 years and maybe 2 months, things pop down. Debbie find out that Bobby been married, right? What would obtain as it relates to, the interest of both of them, the assets.
The division of assets. Okay, so in Jamaica, we don't have a 50-50 sharing of assets down the line.
We don't?
Does not, no, it's not like that. There's only one asset that the law presumes is owned 50-50. That's the family home. And the family home is the principal place of residence or the habitual place of residence that is owned by one or the other party or both. If there's a third party's name on it, it's not the family home.
So if it's Debbie's grandmother's house, then it's not.
It's not the family home. You could live there for 50 years. It won't become the family home. So there won't be a presumed 50-50 interest. But for all other property, which may include Debbie's family home that they're living in, if they renovated it, improved it, and all that kind of thing, or it's the car, it's the painting, it's the shares, it's anything, it's the money in the bank, all other assets, the parties' interest in them are determined by the contribution that's made towards the acquisition, maintenance, or improvement of them. Now, here's an important fact. Contribution does not equal money. So if I have been the proverbial wind beneath your wings,
oh my God,
and because of the homemaker contribution I made, or because I helped to take care of your ailing mother so that you could go out with a clear mind and communicate eloquently like Stefan and bring in the bread,
yes,
then I have contributed. Now that's qualitative contribution, and it still has value, and it's not treated differently than quantitative contribution.
Wow.
But how do we determine what the returns on that contribution should be? That's a matter for a judge, but it's contribution nonetheless.
Wow.
Right? And that's how we determine. Now, you touched on something important. Many times in a relationship, you have somebody, or at the end of it, because most times they're seeing me at the end, right? And you will hear, as a wife or common law spouse, he handled all the finances.
Yes.
So I don't know what we own, where they are, and all that kind of thing. Don't allow yourself to remain in the dark. Whether you're a man or a woman. Listen, I have four brothers, so I'm not partial to women only. And the truth be known, more women are now the respondents or defendants in claims for interest in property than before. Years ago, it used to always be the woman trying to claim because the man had everything, but the roles have reversed in many cases. And if your partner is giving you a gift, like buying a car and saying this is your birthday gift, please ensure the car is registered in your name.
Mighty God. Somebody write that down.
So
and as you were talking about the family home, so many light bulbs went off for me, because sometimes it is out of the goodness of one's heart that there are these contributions made to, oh, it's grandma's house, but I'm putting in $200,000 to fix the roof and to rehabilitate it. And the notion is that, listen, if anything goes south, I have money in it, so me good. And here you come now, mashing up Dolly House now. Sherry Ann telling us that that's not quite the way the law sees it.
Well, if you've made a contribution, you can make a claim. But the truth is, at the time you're doing it, again, when the going is good, we're not talking about the what ifs when it falls apart. But you have to bear in mind that if you're putting that money in, you're either making a gift or you're making an investment. Make it clear, right? Because at the end of the day, we could spend a lot of time trying to figure out what, and the money, figuring out what it meant, right? And that's where the prenup helps.
Yes.
But we talk about prenup, but there's a lot that goes on during the relationship that would not have been the subject of the, might not have been the subject of the prenup unless the prenup also said anything we acquired during the union should be shared in a particular way. Whether we say all those things should be 50-50, or we say that we should share them according to the contribution we make towards acquiring them.
So,
okay?
So Sharianne, after this wealth of knowledge that you have downloaded upon us for consideration, I'm seeing Gary saying he was a little bit late, so he's asking us to just recap the definition of a common law relationship really quickly, and then we have a question from Joy on our Facebook community.
No problem. So a common law union is created when a single man or single woman cohabits. And cohabits means living together as if you are in law, husband and wife, with a single woman or single man. So it's heterosexual, right? And you cohabit for at least 5 years and you establish a common law union.
Okay, thank you for that. Then Joy on Facebook is asking, Gary says thanks. Joy is asking, does Jamaica have community property laws?
No, and that's why I said it's not 50-50 down the line. The only property that is presumed, and you heard the word presumed, presumed to be owned equally is the family home, because there are exceptions to that presumption, and which I can't go into because that's going to take too much.
Yes. Here is a question from Valerie Mackenzie in our Q&A box. Thank you for using the box, Valerie. She says, suppose a spouse has moved out of the family home and has acquired another property. How would the sharing of the family home go, considering that the other party is still living there? And I don't know if Valerie wants to come on mic quickly. You have any clarifying questions for her, Sharianne? Or you're clear on the question?
I'm clear on the question, in that when you have separated, that's when your interest in property, let's use the word, crystallizes, right? That's when we take that snapshot to determine who owns what coming out of the relationship. So the fact that party A, let's say Debbie, has gone on and bought another property doesn't prevent her from claiming that 50% interest that she had acquired in the family home. Okay? It doesn't matter who is living there, because your legal interests have come to pass because of how you were living together and the quality of the relationship that you've had and where you lived and who owned it, you know?
Yes. I see Janice asking a question that we're going to hold on to until we bring on the therapist, right? We're going to crystallize all of the questions. Patricia says, what if that single man or single woman is living double lives and the other party knows not? So let that be.
Oh, well, let me say this to you. There can be one family home, okay? And only one spouse, okay? So if you are living together with two different women who don't know anything about each other, And believe me, it has happened.
We know.
Where the court has to now determine who is the spouse. And unfortunately, sometimes it happens after death. So dead man tells no tale, but two women come forward and say, no, it's me. And the court has to look at all kinds of factors to determine which person could qualify as spouse. Because you remember the 5-year threshold. And then we're going to figure out, where did you leave from each morning to go to work? Where was your clothes? Where, that kind of thing. So you have to delve more deeply to see whether a spouse did in fact exist.
This is very...
Because it's possibly lived with both, but never became a spouse to either.
Absolutely. And I can just imagine how entangled those kind of conversations can get, especially when we're brought into those separate unions. And then there are claims about paternity and DNA and all these things. So I think it is, while we can't control all variables, Sherry-Ann, it's so important to ask questions and get as much information as we can, and to establish certain things as givens in our relationship spaces. Yeah.
Honesty and communication.
Absolutely. Because we have done so much sharing at this point, I would like to ask if there are any audience members who have a burning question, who would like to ask it of Stefan or Sherry-Ann at this point. And we're going to give away some credit in a few minutes. But if there's anybody who has another question, Janice says, suppose he traveled away for work. That can also be complicated, huh?
It could be, but when you travel for work, it's not said to be separation. So the fact that you have had to work in Montego Bay doesn't mean that your home, for the purposes of law, does not remain a Kingston property. Okay? So we're getting into specifics, and that's where evidence will assist a court to determine what the outcome should be.
Understood fully. Is there anybody who has another question while you are thinking about if you want to ask anything else, or you're just very busy digesting? Let me pull up a gift for all of you from the JN Circle family. For those of you who have a Flow device, you now have the chance to win $1,000 call credit for yourself if you can grab these numbers the quickest. Are you ready? The numbers are, for Flow people, remember, 63-3811-2366-9276. And if you win, just make some noise in the comment section so we can congratulate you. And before we end, I promise you we have another $1,000 credit for somebody who has a Digicel device, okay? Because this is what JN does. Hashtag JN cares every single week, every single month. All right. Now, I think we have done a whole lot of educating. I see so many comments in the chat about how enlightening this session has been. Stefan and Sherry-Ann, thank you so much. I'm now seeing one hand raised. I'm going to invite Stefan to come back on micro and video, just in case this question implicates him as well. Rose Miller, please go for it. Lady Rose. Greetings. Can you please unmute? Somebody's asking, what is the gift for persons in Canada? Can the JN team please answer that in the chat? Rose, are you having difficulty unmuting? I'm not sure. Javon or tech team, does she have the permissions to unmute? Let me see if I can. I'm not sure what's happening. Can you type it in the chat, Rose? What's the issue that you're having so we can assist you? I think I saw another person's hand raised. Is there another question for our panelists? All right. So Rose is having some challenge or other. I think I saw, was it Adrian Allen? Do you have a question? Or was it an accidental raising of hand? All right, it seems like it was a false alarm, Stefan and Sherry-Ann. So we'll invite you to come back on towards the end. Oh, hold on, here we go. Question from Facebook. Do prenups have to be formal agreements? Can a couple just write one and sign it? Interesting.
No, they have to be formal for them to be enforceable, because it has to be in writing, first of all. They have to sign them before a justice of the peace or an attorney at law. And each party ought to have had independent legal advice. And the attorney has to certify that the implications of the agreement were explained to the particular client before the agreement was signed. So there are legal requirements for them to be written and formal.
Got it. We have Samantha asking, what if we were living together in his house and later purchased a home together? How would that work?
Well, it depends on the home you were living in at the time of separation. Because remember, I said there can only be one family home. And so it says principal place of residence or habitual place of residence. So we have to take that snapshot at the time of separation or divorce to determine what the quality of that home is.
Got it. Let's welcome Letna Allenroe on stage to ask her question of our panelists. Come through, Letna. Can you, okay.
Yes, hi Kamala, Sherian, and Stefan. The reason I asked the prenup question, you see, I have one daughter, right? And she's working a very good job, very excellent job with Uber Canada. And she just got her apartment. Now, when we signed the paper for her apartment at the lawyer said to her, ask her, do you have a boyfriend? She goes, no, not yet. He says, well, once a boyfriend comes on the stage, please come back to me. I'll have the prenup ready for you. So I thought about it and I said, you know, that is a Victor Newman thing, that. And you're on the restless. as a Victor Newman. So that's one I asked. So many young people now who are in love and they said love is blind and they do all of these things. And when it gets serious, as Sherian said, do not make that decision the day before the wedding. But they have to do that before. That has to be a discussion and then you will know where the relationship is going. Because once one hears about a prenup, especially when a young lady is very confident, have her degrees and have her good job and whatnot, have her car or own condo, and guys are going to start flocking. And they know, like in Jamaica, it's 5 years. In Canada, it's 2 years.
Okay.
2 years they can live together before they start claiming. So that's one of the things why I asked that question.
Thank you so much, Letna. And those are some powerful points about preparation for, you know,
Yeah.
forward thinking to be ready for that. And that lawyer is not playing around either, right?
No, not playing. Very serious man from Barbados. Very serious man.
And thank you for continuing to guide your daughter. Thank you so much, Letna.
Yeah, is the one, darling, so I have to.
Yes. Thank you so much for being a part of our class as usual.
Yes.
Just to jump in also, there's another question from Valerie. Valerie says, please remind me of the term used for common law pre-contract. Was it a cohabitation?
Cohabitation agreement.
Okay. All right. I see Rose's hand is back up. Rose, are you able to come on stage now and come on micro? Let's try again. All right. Can you unmute now? You're on stage. Can you unmute? I'm not sure what's happening with the unmuting for Rose. Are you seeing the icon, the microphone icon? All right, so while we're figuring that out, I see a question from Renee. Renee Mills said, let me see if I can find the first part. So Fanny, can you help me? Can you find that comment from Renee, the first one? Renee, here she goes. What happens when a woman purchases a home alone and what's the last piece now? Sold it and decides to separate pending a divorce? Does the husband have a stake in the property?
Purchased a home alone.
And I think then started a union, right? And she sold it and decided to separate pending a divorce.
Well, the question is, was that property ever the home they occupied together? Because if it was, then we're talking family home, potentially. But if it wasn't, then we have to talk about whether he contributed in some way. And if he did, then he could well have a claim. What the extent of that claim is will depend on the extent of the alleged contribution.
Okay, so we have to be wrapping up tightly now because we are pressed for time. Vivine's final question for today, for this segment. Vivine says, what if a spouse buys another house while living in the family house? Will that second house be shared 50-50 as well in the case of separation?
You can answer that right now, Kamala, right? The truth is that it's only the family home that's presumed to be owned 50-50. Every other property, we look at contribution to determine each party's interest in it. Okay?
Stefan, do you have any questions?
Oh, not at all, but I'm learning as well. I'm learning.
I'm taking notes, right?
Absolutely.
Can we just put our hands together and just give Stefan and Sherry-Ann a huge round of applause? Just raise your hands and big them up. This has been amazing and we're not done yet, right? So thank you, Sherry-Ann. Stay on, stay close to come back on towards the end, and you as well, Stefan. Now we're going to make way for Andre Allen Casey and Brian and Basillia Cuff. Welcome, everyone. Welcome, welcome. Please get comfortable. I feel like all of us just went all the way to university and came back. Thank you so much. Hi, Cuffs, looking all beautiful over there. And let me just start off by saying the Cuffs celebrated their 7th wedding anniversary on Monday. Was it Monday? On January 4, whatever January 4 was, right? So
yes.
And many, many happy returns to you both.
Thank you.
Now you know that we have a little bit of time, so I'm gonna fast right into your business real quick, right? 7 years of marriage. Is there anything, especially around money, that you wish you had known before you said I do?
Well, for me, I wish I'd known that children were this expensive. Listen, we have 2 beautiful girls and we give God thanks for them, but I had no idea. I knew they were expensive, but I had no idea. I don't know if it's a 2020 or 2000 phenomenon. I don't know what it is, but children are very, very expensive. And I think that's one of the things that I didn't really think about much before coming into marriage in terms of how expensive it would be to have children.
Yeah, and I agree in a sense, because like we were at a friend's house recently and they had a storeroom full of Pampers and wipes, and we were like, if we had thought about that, we would have done the same, because it makes a lot of sense. But I think premarital counseling, hearing all the other panelists talk about communication and how important communication is. For us, communication as communicators, one of the things I remember from UE, my very first class with Professor Agri Brown, is that communication is the interactive transference of meaning between intelligences. And that has stuck with me from 2005 till now, right? Mm-hmm. And at premarital counseling, we did a lot of communicating. I didn't even know some of these questions existed. I didn't even know some of these things about me existed, about her, but premarital counseling really opened our eyes. So we believe that communication is very important, and it helps to prepare for the difficult questions and the difficult times.
Yeah,
absolutely. All right. So in terms of the money part though, the expenses re children was the major one for you, right? Mm-hmm. I know that for some couples, conflicts around money can be very significant and can cause a lot of conflict. And I'm going to invite Andre Allen Casey, counseling psychologist, to come through right now and share with us, in your experience as a psychologist and as someone who coaches, I would imagine sometimes soon to be weds, right? In terms of preparing for marriage, what are some of perhaps the general misconceptions about money and love in a married space?
Wow, thank you very much for having me. Just to get straight into answering your question, you cannot tell me how to spend my hard-earned money. That is one of them. That definitely happens because folks believe that they have their own independence as it relates to it's my job. It's not you working my job for me. I am the one that is going out there and working my job. So now you're I go out there and work it, and you want to tell me how to spend it or how to use it. No, man, No. Well, go to work for me then.
Yes.
So the idea here.
Bas, did you have any difficulty with this me, with this mine and ours, delineation?
Well, first of all, we didn't have anything when we just got married, to be honest with you. We didn't have any money, so it wasn't much of a problem. We were quite fine. But as we progressed in our marriage and as we started becoming a little bit more mature and making a little bit more money, I think for us, we already understood the importance of making do with what we have, living within our means, because we had to for quite a few years. And we still do, but in the earlier years of our marriage, we never had much. And so when I heard the talks of our prenup, I said to Brian, "Why we never have nothing to go put in any prenup?" But I think over the years, as we started finding different streams of income and or value kind of increased in terms of our experience, which gave us some leverage in terms of the amount of money we made, we continued along the path that we started in terms of ensuring that we put some away, ensuring that we live within our means and we don't spend what we don't have. Yeah.
Keep it simple. Already there are questions coming in, right? I see Rani asking, do you do a monthly budget as a couple?
Oh yes. I am the stickler for the budget, right? I was listening to Stefan and others earlier when they were talking about who is a spender and who is a saver and who is yes. We are on the opposite end of the scale. We try to find a balance. But yeah, we do the budget and we try our very best to stick to it as much as possible, because especially with the two girls in the picture, we have to think about their future. So we do a monthly budget. There is no yours, mine. All right, let me explain that. So there is a yours, mine. I won't go into her money and ask her for, what you're doing with your money and how you this, how you that. We believe that it's our money, but it's still your money. It's your paycheck, you collect it. If you want to buy some food or whatever, if you want to buy a new shoes, we don't say it's your money or you should have brought that and say it to me. When it comes down to bigger spending, of course, we have to have discussions and, we do budget and we do have some form of demarcation, but we still believe in the unity, the marriage as us now, as opposed to Basillia and Brian.
Got it. So I can now segue, Andre, into the question from Janice, and I want to get your perspective and then the couple's perspective, Janice asks, in your experience, does joint account work better to keep the union strong over separate accounts, right? So Sir Alan Casey, please walk us through your vast experience and what you would advise a soon-to-be married couple.
Wow. Okay, it really does and heavily is very dependent on the persons that are involved. The joint account, if the person believes that this is we and not me, because you do have relationships, unfortunately, where persons are still coming in with the me and yours and mine and things like that. Unfortunately, that is still the case. Notwithstanding, if you come in and say, we are doing this together and you feel safe, and that's a critical element there, where you feel safe. If you feel safe, if you feel you can trust this person, if you feel like this person will not take advantage of the relationship and of you, then you'll make yourself a lot more vulnerable. There's a biblical concept, and the concept says, "For where your treasure is, there your heart is also." And so, for example, for me, I'm in my 25th year of marriage, but I remember saying to my wife that, honey, in order for you to show you that you have my heart, here's my money. And so you see, so it is, how much are you prepared to make such an investment and trust? I don't expect you to be blind now, of course. I've pursued her for 7 years before I get to marry to her. So if you understand what I'm saying here. So while you build that trust and confidence, then you're prepared to invest a whole lot more. On the other hand, there are some folks who says, listen, let us have still maintain our separate accounts, but we'll have a central account where both persons can contribute to that central account. Whether it's going to be, but that central account should have from the pin to the kitchen sink, literally inside of it, where everybody understands who or what is being contributed to this account so as to satisfy and fulfill the requirements where that budget is concerned. Now, it is very important for us to stay in our lanes. And what do I mean by that? There are times in which somebody can, if just because somebody is making more money, it does not necessarily mean that they have to contribute more. Okay, so you need to have a conversation. What can I contribute to the satisfaction of this budget? Can I contribute 60% of it? Can I contribute only 10% of it? And so the other person need not become nitpicky and say, hey, you should offer more, when the agreement was, this is what I stated that I will offer. Now, if there are other expenses or you have incurred other expenses as you mature and grow, then because you want to have harmony and into the relationship, then what is it that you are prepared to contribute further so that the harmony can continue?
Mm-hmm. Brian and Bass, this practice of joint account and then separate account, it sounds like that's what both of you have, you've taken that approach.
Well, we have a joint account, but it didn't start out with us saying, all right, we're going to have a joint account where we're going to monthly put money in, and from that we pay the bills. It wasn't structured like that, because really for us, it was just a matter of ensuring that we took care of what needed to be taken care of. And so it wasn't a case where we decided from the get-go that we wanted to do a joint account so that the money could be split and it could be monitored, that kind of thing. That wasn't the case. We just really budget. And say, for example, I needed to buy a pressure cooker or something for the house, and my money, or the money that I had in my account, it was lessened for some reason. Brian has no issue with helping out or paying a bill that I should have, or it has never really been an issue. Not really. It has never been an issue when it comes on to taking care of our expenses, because I am always willing to pick up where he falls short, and he has always been willing to do the same for me.
And in addition to that, just to add to what Sir Andre said, and big up Sir Andre, we go way back,
Yeah.
It's important to have the difficult conversations. I think, I was watching, as YouTubers, we watch other YouTubers, and there's a common thing where it is difficult questions you're afraid to ask your mother. A person would ask their parents some questions that me not ask my mother, right? I think, when you're planning a date night, maybe you need to have a money night where you're difficult questions, and it's a safe space, a safe night, where you just ask the question, listen, what would happen if I'm unable to use any of my money this month because I have a loan or whatever, and I think couples need to just do that, because money is a big deal.
Yeah, it is.
Big issue. And on that note, Brian and Bass, I want to jump back over to Sir Alan Casey. What are some of the ways in which money become a big rock stone around the necks of couples? Because we hear about, Stefan mentioned earlier, when one is earning more than the other, and sometimes insecurities are triggered. Talk us through some of the other ways in which, money becomes a toxic area in some relationships.
Well, just the whole idea where one person might be a spendthrift rather, as against a miser. That can be quite problematic, might I add.
The incompatibility with money.
The incompatibility.
To bridge the gap.
Very much so. Children, illnesses, wanting to buy something, a new car, a new house, paying rent increase or mortgage. I'm just saying here, job loss. I'm just saying here that these are some of the issues that occur. And sometimes, because unfortunately we do not have a conversation prior to the relationship, or to the marriage, I should state, what is it? Some what if scenarios. What if I lose my job? what kind of contingency plans can we put in place to ensure that this doesn't happen? Or is it that you are going to feel so burdened? Suppose I take a longer time to get a job. I sent out 200 applications and it has been 3 years now, right? And we still have the bills to pay. We still have rent to pay because I would just get the house and I have lost my job as a result of that. You know, so these are some of the real issues that really and truly sometimes we just kind of go by the fly, so to speak, and we don't have some real conversations about some what if scenarios. And unfortunately, whenever those things do creep up or does happen, then we, you know, we feel hopeless and feel overwhelmed and stressed out. And by extension, different types of personality disorders can become a part of our livelihood. And we don't want that into the relationship. So we'll become stressed out and overwhelmed because we are dealing with some real matters. Had it been where we had a conversation with each other about some what ifs and what kind of contingency plans, whether or not we're going to be not going to touch our insurance money that we're contributing, that aspect of the where you can take off some money from your insurance.
Yes, the accumulated wealth.
Right, you're not going to take it off because you need to have these funds in place in the event of something problematic like this that can occur into the relationship. So those kind of conversations needs to be had, and not where one person feel like, oh gosh, but I've been saving from I've been a child, I've been saving this money, I know I forgot to spend it on you because you get sick. So these kind of real conversation needs to be had.
Absolutely. And also you mentioned some of the broader scenarios of what can happen with money, but I feel like so many times it's the emotions underneath it and the way how people value money and value the power that comes with money that can cause the breakdown. For example, let's say that one of the partner's parents become ill and unable to work. And therefore, the partner automatically feels like, well, duh, I'm going to support my mother or my father. And sometimes the assumption is not the same assumption that the other partner has. You know what I mean? So Let me throw that over to Brian and Bass in terms of that general scenario. How would you guide a couple, for example, who's experiencing that now? From your experience, what would you guide them? How would you guide them in terms of what to say, what not to say, and how to navigate that?
All right, so sorry about that. Our daughter just came, so we didn't get exactly how what to not say about what.
Right. So the scenario is a couple is married and the parent of one of the partners becomes ill and is no longer able to support themselves. And so let's say that it is Bobby from our scenario. Bobby's mother gets sick and she can't work anymore. And in Bobby's mind, obviously I'm going to care for my mother. So I'm going to pay for the nurse to come in. I'm going to be the main, contributor to taking care of mom. Whereas Debbie's saying, we bought the house, we cannot live outside, and the money has to go in this direction. How would you guide them from your experience in terms of managing such a conversation?
Well, first of all, the conversation must be had. It cannot be a case where the husband is on one side thinking to himself and saying, boy, is my mother and I'm going to take care of my mother. And it doesn't matter what anybody else says. This is my mother. She comes, quote unquote, first. And the wife on one side is saying, oh, you're really going to all of that with the money and not talk to me? And then she's not saying anything. So the conversation needs to be had. I think a lot of times the difficulty and the bad energy that comes into play, it comes about because we are not open to having these discussions. We're not open to having these tough talks. We're not open also to being completely honest about how we feel. Yes, I know she's your mother. Yes, I know that, she's not well. She can't care for herself, etc. She's not working, but we also need to consider that you also have a family. So there must be a balance. There must be a common ground where we can figure things out financially, where we can figure things out in terms of how to spend the money wisely. Mm-hmm. Sometimes I think in the heat of the moment and because we're emotional about maybe what the parent is going through, we may make decisions on our own in their best interest, not thinking about the repercussions with the wife and the family. For example, if we only make $50,000 for the month, we have 2 children, and the nursing home for mommy is $40,000 for the month. Mind you, we've made only $50,000 for the month. It cannot be reasonable. It cannot be a case where you think it's okay to just go ahead because it's my mother, to just go ahead and spend and leave your family in limbo, right? So I think, first of all, the conversation needs to be had openly and honestly. There must be ways that you can try to figure out to do things in budget. I know sometimes we tend to look at the first option, but I strongly believe in shopping around, and I apply that to every area of my life. It doesn't matter what I'm buying. It could be a bottle of water. I am willing to shop around. And so I think, as I said before, the conversation needs to be had, and then from that, decisions are made.
And I think I'm going to be a little bit controversial because I agree with Bas, but I think as a relationship happens, people need to be more mature and understand that a relationship is the start of something new. So it's no longer your mother or my situation and your situation. And it doesn't have to be a marriage, it's our situation. From you're in that relationship, it's our situation. So Bobby can't just so say Ray and Michelle go say Ray. You know, the both of them are after.
Debbie is her name. Please call her back.
After having that conversation, which must be had, the two now say, hey, where do we find the common ground? Where do we compromise? The 40 grand thing can't go work since only 50 we were. What about trying to get my cousin from country who is able to come take care of mommy and give her 5 grand a week, right? You know, this discussion has to be made. We need to be more mature with relationships and understanding how we value it. You know, I mean, there's a lot of re-socialization that needs to take place, especially, not gonna be straight, from the men's perspective on how we deal money. That's how we were grown and cultured. And I mean, if the wife or the girlfriend is a stronger person, lean on her when it comes down to certain decisions. Yeah, I mean, nobody should take anybody for fool. And I mean, yeah, you still have to have your guards up, but we need to be more mature about how we handle relationships and issues with relationships.
I love this response. And the only thing I would say, Brian, cough, is that you cannot pay the lady or the man $5,000 per week. It is against the laws of the land. So please up it up, little tops, right?
Compromise.
Pay in cash and in kind then, right?
There you go.
Sister Allen Casey, same scenario. I love what Karen said. Good question, Kamala, re Bobby mother. How would you advise Bobby and Debbie in that scenario?
Wow, I think both of them already answered. But seriously, it cannot be, as Brian mentioned and Basillia, that it is a we and not a me. And I understand, you know, unfortunately, there are times when folks might say, listen, I can get another woman, I can get another wife, I can get another mother. And so you understand the sentimental attachments. And so really and truly, for some folks, they're saying, listen, I don't need your permission to decide how I take care of my mother. And so I understand the emotions that is ongoing, notwithstanding. Please remember that you also have a responsibility to your new family. And especially if you also have children where that family is concerned. And so as a result of that, that conversation about how are we going to negotiate to ensure that nobody comes out a loser, so to speak. Nobody comes out a loser, because you don't want the gentleman to say, okay, then I'm not going to spend any money there. But at the same time, you know, he's carrying feelings, or he has developed resentment, or the female, she has developed resentment towards her husband. So by and part now, the relationship is going to deteriorate because the right decision was not made about how to nurture or to take care of an in-law or a mother or a father for that matter. And so having that conversation and how to ensure that nobody comes out the loser, literally, I think would be the best approach.
I love that piece, and I get the sense that it's coming from your seasonedness in doing marital counseling, because that winner-loser dynamic is a part of what breeds so much contention and animosity and just deep bitterness. And so partnership needs to be the thread throughout the unions, right? We're working together. I'm not always going to have it. You're not always going to have it, but we're valuable, as Stefan inputted earlier. We're both valuable because we bring value to the table, right? So we're going to bear up each other, build up each other, and we're going to do the things together.
Indeed.
And another important piece that I want to throw in here is how money in many ways becomes a symptom of whole heap of other emotional stuff that we're carrying around. Yes? Because let's imagine that Bobby mother is toxic. And Bobby mother, I got guilt trip him until he have heart failure. Right? Because she has said, hold on, you're going to choose your wife over your mother? And I mean birth you? So it's so important to have healthy boundaries too. And all of these things, or childhoods, right? Or past pain, betrayals, all of these things affect how we view money and what kind of relationship we have with money. Would you agree, Sir Alan Casey?
Most definitely. Unfortunately, you know, literally, and I don't know if my wife is on, I hope she's not, but I remember in our early years on stage, when I was pursuing her, I remember saying to her, hey, you know, I love you, you know. This was in 1988. I said, I love you, you know, I want you to marry to me. And I remember distinctively what she said to me. She said, you think love can put food on the table? Right? And that is so true in that, but understandably so. And I think Stefan had mentioned that too, that it ought not to be a divide. A divide is, it's supposed to be like shoes and socks. One must complement the other, so to speak, right? But unfortunately, because we govern our relationships with each other based upon what a person has. As a matter of fact, there's a scriptural reference that says that a man's possession is, a man's life rather, is not generated by his possession. And so the idea here, or in the abundance of his possession. And the idea here is that we ought not to talk about how much we have contributed to decide the quality of relationship, you know, and unfortunately we still allow that to be a divide in the relationship. Just a quick note here. I love what our esteemed lawyer mentioned when she spoke about the qualitative as against the quantitative and contributions. And so sometimes you say we feel that because that we give more value to quantitative as against qualitative, and because we give more value to that, then we feel that we should reap more since we have contributed financially more.
Yes.
Or we have more power, for that matter.
And the power piece comes in.
Yes.
On that very note, Sir Alan Casey, Patricia Ryan is giving a wonderful testimony. She says, I was in that position where my mom got sick and my spouse supported me to give financially and support. He had a situation where he had to stay overnight at times to assist one of his younger siblings because of a life and death accident, and he got my support. So the same thing Bass and Brian have been saying. Partnership, coming together, right? And making it work. Bass and Brian, on your YouTube channel, you speak about many things, right? One of the things that you bravely spoke about was the journey to end up living where you are now, right? And the job changes that you made in order to have the unit, the family unit that you envision and chose for, for your vision and for your life. Talk to us about any rocky piece of that. Tell us what did happen, why Brian lived down at a place they know, and why you down at a cool place, how it work out and how it go.
All right, so our channel on YouTube is Stuff from the Cuffs for anyone who wants to subscribe, like, share, comment. Hello, right? Right. So when we met.
Oh, look at Celia. Celia's on the ball.
We met at a media house. We met at Love FM, and we found love at love, as Mr. Casey would remember. Right? We found love at love. We got married after dating for 4 years. And after being married for a year and a few months, we moved on to separate workplaces, which was hard because I was used to having him for like 6 years. He moved on to TVJ. I moved on to NCUFM. NCUFM is in Mandeville, TVJ is in Kingston. Initially, I had planned to do the traveling because I only worked in the afternoon, and it was fine because it wasn't a long journey with the highway and everything, and I had time to spare before work and after. Plus I had family in Mandeville just in case I wanted to stay over. So we had decided that we were going to go the route of me doing the traveling, because for his work schedule, it wouldn't have been the easiest for him to do the traveling if we decided to relocate to Mandeville. A month after starting to work at NCU, I found out that we were pregnant. After we found out that we were pregnant and a few months into the traveling no longer worked for me. I could not keep up on the road. At some points, I would see, going home in the nights, I would see the light posts jumping across the road because the sleep, just boxing me left, right, and center. And so we quickly realized that we needed to make a decision. It was not the easiest decision, but we had to make it for my best interest in terms of being pregnant. So about 6 months after starting to work at NCUFM, we decided that I would stay in Mandeville with my family, and Brian would live in our family home up that side where he would be closer to work. And that turned into 3 years of us living separately. We would come together on the weekends, but for majority of the week, we were living apart because by that time I had baby, couldn't manage the traveling, even more so now, well, back then, right? Couldn't manage the traveling. And so we decided that, all right, we would just live in separate places for a bit. I had all the help I needed here in Mandeville. And so it was a little easier for me. But then it started to take a strain on our marriage in terms of living apart. And so we had to then now make a decision. We were making the money. Money was not an issue, not at all, not in those 3 years. Money wasn't an issue. We now had to make a decision for our family. What do we want? Do we want the money, or do we want the family structure that we desire?
I hear the family structure in the background.
Yes, family structure in the background.
Let me just jump over to Brian with another query, right? A little fast in Brian. I saw on social media when the story of your decision was carried in one of our daily newspapers, right? Some of the very, I don't even know how to describe them, the very abusive comments, the shockingly abusive comments that people were leaving. People were saying things like, what kind of man would take up, like people were, as Stefan mentioned earlier, correlating the money and the value of a man. So the very notion that he would have opted to take a lesser paying job or jobs in order to have the family unit, people were like, what kind of fool man this? And people went all the way to talking about how when I go live out a door, like a whole heap of abuse came at you. From your perspective, Brian, as still a young man, right? How did you deal with that, and what were your thoughts? Were you dissuaded in any way? Did you feel embarrassed? How did you manage that dynamic?
Well, first and foremost, it's my marriage and our decision. So that was the first thing, blinkers on, Yeah, it was making a decision, having that difficult conversation, working out where we are financially, working out what is best, not only financially, because a lot of times you may have finances, but you don't have a firm relationship. And somebody made mention of it earlier that, you can have all the money in the world if you don't have love. Even though love is not the only thing, that you really don't have anything that will stand up. So, the comments were rough. And as a man, somebody asked earlier, in the chat, I think it was, what, do you do as a man if you're earning less, or, how can you deal with that feeling and all of that? And all of those criticisms came and the comments came, weak man, this, that. And it was people telling me these things, and even her telling me some of these things, because I wasn't looking. I had made my decision. And that's another thing. It's important when you make a decision to stand by it. Yeah. See the long-term goal, because I believe that it's more important for me to be with my family than to be earning the finances and the family structure suffering. Yeah, I remember one day my daughter when I actually came back home, I left the job and I was in a little transition period. So I was home without no money. Yeah, I made some provisions ahead of time, putting something down, leading up, because just in case, I believe in always having something in advance, at least 3 to 6 months. And I was in that transition, and my daughter came to me in the kitchen, and she ran in the kitchen early one morning and she's just like, "Daddy, you're here." And just the mere fact that I was there for her, not gone early in the morning or coming late at night when she was asleep, it made a difference. And I looked at it from a financial perspective, that I may have been taking a hit, but I was taking a lot of love otherwise, and that was able to tide me over. And as I said earlier, the difficult decision, sometimes my former boss said to me, said, "Brian, you're not making the popular decision, but you're making the right decision." And a lot of times we need to make not the popular decision or what will get the likes and the comments, but to actually make the decision that will benefit you in the long term and benefit your family structure. So financially, it was a bit of a task, but we believe in God, and God always made a way. And there's so many doors that were opened up after, yeah, and we had a good support system. But most importantly, we made a decision and we stood by it.
I saw a comment earlier, Bas, that says the way she looks at him, you can tell that she loves him, right? And especially after the 7th anniversary, I see the glow all over you too. So please share your comments.
Yes, I definitely love him, and with all my heart, oh Lord, and all of that. When he made the decision, I did not want to tell him to leave, even though I wanted him to be home with us. I did not tell him to leave because I did not want him to make that move, come back to Mandeville, and then for whatever reason, if he's earning less than me, to start to resent me because he left his dream job to come here and be with family. So I allowed him to go through his process and to process things in his own space until he was ready to make the decision. Mm-hmm. And when he made the transition and people were trolling us on social media and the whole works, I was saying in my head, do they think that my husband left his dream job to come into Mandeville and sit down? No, he was making provisions. That's what a good husband does for his family. Mm-hmm. We were making provisions. It was not the regular 9 to 5 that we were used to, in terms of, that at the end of the month, right, you have this amount of money coming in, but we made other plans. And so we balanced the need for having financial security with ensuring that our family was also secure, and that was most important for us.
That's so powerful. Thank you guys for sharing again that story. Sir Alan Casey, Bas said something that I think is crucial. She mentioned that she did not pressure Brian. She balanced her own needs with his well-being, yes, and gave him space to come into his own decision, and then they discussed it together. Is that one of the things that you think too many women have a difficulty with, especially around money, as in not nagging and pressuring and, putting undue demands on men from time to time?
Well, there is a notion that says men provide and protect, 2 P's, right? So we're just going to relate only to those 2, provide and protect. And so with that notion, then a lot of women, you can hear it in their comments oftentimes, where even if they are being ill-treated in other areas of their lives, they can end up, there is a proverbial but that says, but him is a good provider. And so, so they go through a whole heap of something, but of course they said, but him is a good provider. Mm-hmm. And it kind of lends to the idea that, hey, it kind of lends to the suspected idea that if you cannot provide for me, then really and truly, where you're from. If you cannot provide for me, then and the kind of provision I'm looking for is primarily financial, because I will do everything else. I'll take up all the other slacks, so to speak, but make certain you bring in the moolah, make certain the Benjamin, make sure you bring the team, so that my role can be managed much easier. And so if that's the type of thinking and dynamic, then I'm saying you can set up yourself to having problems also into the relationship. And so, and I'm talking on both ends, where the man, and I think Stefan had mentioned it too, where if the man believes that his only position is to bring in the money and the woman's position is to spend it or to manage it, then one is just an ATM machine and really has no other contribution to make. So unless we junk that or change our conceptualization or our thinking about each other's role into the relationship, then I suspect that the value that each person must bring to continue to have a harmonious and a steady and committed and balanced relationship. If we don't change that kind of mindset, then unfortunately, we might be heading for some kind of trouble.
Absolutely. Letna says, she says, Brian, it looks good on you. That's the last part of her comment. She says, if you listen to everybody, you will never reach your goal. And she says, Brian, it looks good on you, right? Because we had so many questions earlier, and I can feel that there are other questions, I would like to pause here to open up our stage to anyone who would like to come on, unmute, and ask a question of any one of our stellar panelists. I'm going to invite Sherry-Ann and Stefan to come back on. And if it is that you have a question, please go ahead and raise your hand so we can invite you to come on stage and ask it of our panelists now, because I definitely don't want it to be that we end and don't get all of your questions answered. In the meantime, I'm seeing Samantha saying there are some older men who get insecure when their women are independent, and this makes them controlling. Stefan, let me jump over to you. But before I do that, Del Jackson would like to ask a question or make a comment. Come to you, Del.
Hi, good evening. How are you guys doing?
Hi, Del.
Hi, how are you?
Hi, I'm well. Good to have you. You're a little bit low on my speaker. Could you project a little bit more and go right through with your question or comment?
Sorry, it's more like a question. It's open to the panel, whoever can answer it. I believe the topic came up of provider in the household. And I just want to ask a question. If there's one party that's doing the providing, it becomes a depending thing. Do you believe that stuff like that could lead to abuse in the household?
So if one party is doing the providing, it can lead to the dependency, and you're wondering if that dynamic can lead to abuse?
So you up there a second.
Say again, Del? Hi, Del? Okay, I think we got it. I think we got the question. I see you nodding your head, Sherry-Ann. Would you like to lead out on commenting on that? Thank you, Del.
Well, okay. I've seen it happen quite often, because especially when we have to deal with domestic violence situations, you often hear that the fallout is the result of financial disputes about financial matters, or because there is disparity in earning capacity between the spouses. One is the dominant earner or the breadwinner, and the other stays at home to care for the household. There tends to be a withholding of financial support if the dominant earner is not happy for some reason. And it therefore leads to other issues within the relationship. And ultimately, many times we find ourselves before the family court for domestic violence issues to be resolved.
Thank you for that. Sir Alan Casey, what are your thoughts on that dynamic and how we can perhaps, manage it for healthy outcomes?
Well, it is a fact, unfortunately, that since I am there's the idea that money gives power. As a result of, money gives power. And so because of that dynamic, then you really don't have much of a say in anything, which then, as Del had mentioned, it does put you into a position where the person who's making the lion's share of the funds to become abusive. Okay. And the abuse is, you can, what are you bringing to the table? It's because of me why you're able to eat. It's because of me why you're living right. It's because of me. And so a constant reminder of that, or just kind of put the person that listen, well, I'm just here to serve then. I'm almost like a maid. And by the way, it can go both ways, male to female, female to male. And so for some men, they feel what is called emasculated, because the lady is not only making the lion's share, but she is giving the demands about how things must operate, and he doesn't really have a say, so to speak, which oftentimes leads to some men going outside of the relationship because they feel a lot more respected. So, but how do you stop it? What is the solution? A part and parcel to that solution, we have to go back to the conversation. We have to ask the person, how do you value me? What is more important? Even if it's $1 I'm contributing, I'm going to put up my hand here. If it's 10 fingers, make a hand. Correction, if it's 5 fingers, make a hand, right? Then guess what happened? If that is true, even if you have 4 fingers, then you don't have a hand. I'm just saying, if the premise that says if it's 5 fingers that make a hand, then it necessitates then that you need all 5 fingers. Just because you are contributing 4, you need what? 1 more to make the hand. And so we see, one of the things we need to remind folks of that conversation, to say, hey, just because I might be I'm contributing in a very minimal way, listen, I am still contributing in a qualitative way.
and I was just about to come to that, because when you say a limited way, I think it's important for us to realize that we add value by virtue of being and by sharing. Yeah.
Yes.
I want to jump over. Thank you, Sir Alan Casey. Jump over to Stefan, because I'm going to ask us to leave some gems because we're out of time, right? Stefan, let's talk to Bobby. Let's say Bobby is insecure because Debbie has got it like that, right? How would you guide or coach Bobby as it relates to his insecurities around matters of material, acquisitions, i.e. money, etc.?
Well, first, Bobby needs to definitely do some introspection and understand that as hard as it might be, or as painful as that re-socialization process is, you are worth more than what you can provide when it comes to material, when it comes to money, when it comes to wealth. Because as it says, it's an insecurity. And we oftentimes put an unfair and unrealistic burden on the other person in the relationship, feeling like they need to fill that gap within us. Now, there are some things that person can do to reassure or make it a safe space, right? But the ultimate responsibility rests with you as the individual to understand, why am I insecure? That's one part. The other part is to understand that insecurity can cause you to dehumanize the other individual as much as you feel dehumanized. Because now you are looking at this person as somebody who's just a monster, evil, looking down on you, and not understanding that this person has their own experiences, their own fears, all of these things, right? So Bobby really needs to take a step back and understand that there are some things I need to solve. There are some gaps I need to solve within my own self. Seek counseling, seek advice, financial advice, psychological advice. It does not have to be something that you do on your own. And that's something that perhaps might also be extended to the other person in the relationship as well, right? When you look at, the final thing, if I had to leave anything, is to understand that there is more to you as an individual, and there is more to the relationship. So we're talking about money and love, but the dimensions of the human being are almost inexhaustive, right? And so there are so many elements, so many sides. And so as you embark on that journey to self-discovery, that should also transition into that road of discovery between you and your spouse. And kudos to the cuffs, man. I admire you all so much. It's the first time seeing you all and listening to you all, but I admire you all so much as it relates to how you all interact and communicate.
The love is real, guys. So now, Stefan, we could not have left without that piece of it, because I know I've seen persons in clinical practice where so many men are insecure because of how I think we all have to own it, we have taught them and socialized them. So
Absolutely.
We have a lot of unlearning work to do. And if you could just drop one more gem quickly, Stefan, about how it is that you think it's ideal that women engage with men who might have the insecurity. Because as the scenario was talking about, Bass said that she did not pressure Brian.
That's, two words: safe space. Women want to feel secure, men want to feel safe. When you make a man feel safe to make his own decisions, aka, I want you to make a decision, but make it in the next 5 minutes, please. Make it in the next 2 weeks. That's not safe. You're piling pressure on top of pressure. It's saying, I trust you to make the best decision. Full stop. Right? And that does a lot for a man. You don't even understand how much when a man gets that level of safety, that he becomes loyal to that woman. Right? And so strip off all the other things that you've learned, women, and understand that the man is a man because he's a man. Nothing else that you've piled up, nothing else that you learn. Take off Disney, take off Lifetime, and just understand that the man in front of you, the man who is in that relationship with you, is in a position to make a decision for himself. It might not be one that you agree with, right? But putting that condescension or that air of condescension on top of that is going to make the situation only worse. So safe space, 2 words.
If it was at the end of class, I'd give you a timeout for some of these comments that you just made, but we highly appreciate them always. And this is Men's Truth, right? And
yes.
for those of you who want to follow Stefan and his tribe of brothers, there is a link in the chat for how you can log on to their podcast. Brian and Basillia, 7 years strong with several G's at the end. Quick word of advice, coaching guidance for those who are about to say I do. What they must know, what they must think of.
Well, there are so many things that you have to take into account, but I will say at the foundation of it all, make sure that you love that person, because that love is what is going to help you to stick around when the going gets tough. They can have all the money in the world, all the financial security. When there is love, it helps to bind things together. And I've always said to persons who are getting married, make sure that you love and you like the person, right? Enjoy their company, enjoy doing things with them. And most of all, communicate about everything. Finances, because let me tell you, your home, the difference between your home being a happy home and a miserable home could very well boil down to the mishandling of finances, or of course, on the opposite side of things, the good side of things. And so I will say, learn to communicate. Know that your marriage is unique to you. Your relationship is unique to you. What may happen and work for me and Brian may not work for you. So you have to find what works for you and work hard at it. Learn the love languages of your partner. Learn to know how they love and how they appreciate love. I mean, we have so many other things that we could add. So check out our YouTube channel, because we have a whole heap of that over there.
But yeah, I agree with Bass and some of what Stefan said. I'm a part of the tribe, a silent tribe member.
Understand the tribe.
Yes, I'm all over the place.
Hold on, Brian. Let us launch our post-class poll while you're talking, so that the participants can be doing that, because I feel like we could be here for another while and keep it the same way. But go on through, Brian.
Yeah, I think it's important that we have some form of re-socialization and working on how we have been cultured, because what used to work back in the 60s, 50s, 40s will not work now, right? And as we evolve and as time passes on. We have to be as Stefan said, taking off some of the things and just leaving it bare, you know, so that you can understand. This is me, the raw me, that's the raw you, and this is what is coming together at the table. No fanciness, no put on, just be real, be straight, because at the end of the day, no matter how many assets you gain, no matter how much you grow and your likes and your everything is just blowing up and your brand becomes so big, at the end of the day, it goes back to the raw, bare bones, the two of you, right? When the rough moments hit, when the sad moments hit, when the real moments hit. So it's important to communicate and communicate genuinely. And it goes back to the definition of communication. There has to be meaning. And because I tell you, say, and you tell me, say, that was communication.
Meaning must be transferred.
Meaning must be transferred. So I think we need to go back to what it really is to communicate, and that will affect and help a lot of other relationships and marriages at the end of it all.
Excellent, so powerful. Lady McGregor, I will give you the final say, because Sir Alan Casey dropped a couple of truth bombs towards the end here. For the instances of preparing for when love does not go all the way, can you just share with us maybe your top 2 things to consider as part of preparation for those instances?
Well, the preparation for something like that really begins when you are contemplating getting together. Because unfortunately, the reality of life is that things don't always work out the way we planned. And when we are about to embark on that union, we need to stop talking about all the nice things only. Let's get real. Let's talk about the money side of it. Don't let counseling only be focused on how we're going to live together, but how are we going to sustain that life? And then when we hit the rough patches, I again say, it might sound odd coming from a lawyer, but my first question is always, have you talked about it? And when I say talk about it, no, it's not only for purposes of attempting to reconcile that couples should go to counseling. Sometimes it's about finding about the truths about yourself and why what you are doing is not working in the union. And so the question is, have you attempted counseling before getting to my door? Because I can't really help you if your emotional space is not cleared of all the fog and the debris and whatever else is left over. And because litigation is rough. And if you're carrying all the other baggage that you haven't had a professional help you through, then it's harder for me to help you. And no solution at court is gonna give you that satisfaction.
Excellent. Powerfully said, and Shanique applauses you for that advice. Sir Alan Casey, I get the impression that you're going to have a lot of clients coming out of this space and moving on, because the recommendation from every panelist has been talk it through, get some help, get a neutral third party involved. Let me launch the results of our post-class and send you on your merry way. Let us see what you have shared in the polls. And while we're waiting on that, on our tech team to load it, next week is another Power Pack session. Next week, we're talking about parenting, fatherhood, motherhood, and otherhood, which are unique approaches to parenting. So you don't want to miss that one. Next week, Wednesday, same time, same place. Now to our questions as we wrap it. My mood has improved since class has started. 84% of you said yes, and you can thank our panelists for that. I feel more prepared to have money conversations in a relationship. 87% of you say yes. I'm really proud of the panelists for working on that for us. I am now more aware of my money personality and habits. 78% of you said yes. I feel more equipped to manage money conflicts. 74% of you say yes. And I received what I expected from this class. 100% of you either said totally or mostly. And so we give total thanks to the JN Group, first of all, for this amazing privilege. And to Sir Alan Casey, Sherry and McGregor, Stefan Campbell, and Brian and Basillia Cuff, the newlyweds, even though not so new, they still have the newlywed glow. Thank you to all of you. Thanks to Javon, Celia, and all of our tech team. Thanks for all 109 of you who stayed put to the end of it. We love and appreciate you. Come back next week, right? And I promised a credit giveaway. Hold on there. I could never let you leave and don't get your credit. So for those who have a digital device, here goes. 54392-9134-2171. And the commendations are excellent as always. Thank you for staying with us. Much love. Enjoy the rest of your new year, but come back next week. Panelists, see you soon, hopefully, and all the best for the rest of the week. Blessings and much love. Bye. Follow Brian and Bass on YouTube, subscribe, like, and comment below. All right. Follow Stefan's podcast. Go and see Mr. Alan Casey, and don't go see Miss Sherian until you get some counseling. All right. Much love, guys. Take care.